Hello everyone, I am so happy to see you. According to YouTube analytics, over 70% of you guys are not subscribed to the channel. If you guys want Pugsley to eat this month, I suggest you do so. Enjoy the video guys, I'll love you guys forever and always. Hello everyone and welcome to the Season 14 updated Gnar items tier list. So basically, I do these like once or twice a year, and I recently just played with all of the new items. I didn't play with them all, but there were some new ones. I tested out the new ones that I wanted to test out. Of course, there's some items like the support items that I did not test, and then some items that were previously in the game that are basically similar that I did not build as well. But for the most part, I have experienced most of the items so far, or I've experienced them previously in previous seasons. So yeah, I have all of the items I want to list here. I don't have them all, like some of the jungle items, some of the lower tier epic items, mostly legendary items, no more mythics this season. But yeah, I got things like boots, sub items, starting items, and then mainly all of the legendary items. So yeah, I'm just going to be ranking these based on what I think, my opinion. This is all my opinion, so you can have your own opinion. You can tell me what you think is best down below. And yeah, after testing all these items, I am very excited to rank them all in this tier list. So yeah, we might as well get started. And at the end of this, I want to compare this list to my last list that I did last season. So let's see how much different it is and how much my perspective has changed since then. Alright, first, Abyssal Mask. So this item's basically the same. It's actually a pretty good magic resist item. You get health, magic resist, ability haste, and you can curse enemies around you, reducing their magic resist. So it's really good whenever you have AP champions on your team. So they'll do more damage around you whenever you're pretty much a very good mega Gnar item. Now, I will be saying I will be changing this list a ton as I go. So yeah, I'm just going to put Abyssal Mask for now. I'm going to put it in B tier. This doesn't mean it's going to stay in B tier. I just think this is a good starting point. I could move it up. I don't think I'll be moving it down from here. But yeah, items will go up or down just depending on my opinion on things. They might change as I go through this list. Okay, I forget what this item is. This is the upgraded version of this. I was going to put it in F. I think I'm going to put both of these in F. Just not very useful on Gnar. Like, you have to build the tier for this, and pretty useless. We have no mana. Pretty obvious. And the thing was changed. Not really much of a change. I still think it's a very reliable item. I think it's very similar to Abyssal Mask, where you only situationally build it, but building it against hyper carries is very, very good. So I'm just going to put it in B tier. It only gives health and ability haste, but like I said, you mainly only build this against hyper carries to, reduce their tenacity whenever you CC them. And yeah, again, very similar to Abyssal Mask. It's a very good Mega Gnar item. Okay, Ardent Censer, I'm just going to put this in F tier. Like I said, with these support items, I haven't built much. Like, as of now, I'm not building this, so I'm by default just going to put this in F. Maybe E tier if it has some stats. But yeah, this item has mana and then heal mana, whatever it is. Whatever it has. But yeah, I don't worry about this item. Axiom Arc. I have not done much with Axiom Arc. I think similar to another item, Experimental Hexplate, I feel like this is even more or less consistent than that. Like, sure, it gives really good damage, really good ability haste, but the problem is it gives no HP. It has lethality instead. It could be good for a one-shot build, but honestly, it's not for me, and I just tried to get really good gains with Experimental Hexplate, and that was even a struggle to get my ultimate 2 times in one Mega Gnar. So I'm honestly gonna put this in D tier for now. Again, I might move this around. Okay, Banshee's Veil. I mean, this does give base stats. It doesn't give mana or anything like that. Like, base stats that Gnar would like for an AP item. It gives a ton of AP, magic resist, and the shield is honestly not the worst. I think Gnar likes shields like this. Sadly, we can't really build it that much for now. I'm going to put it in C tier, mainly just for the shield and the magic resist. And then, honestly, the ability power isn't bad. Like, you will get value from it. Or I'll put it at the top of D tier. We'll see. Again, I'll be changing this around. Battle Song, I'm instantly just gonna put into F. I'm not 100% sure. Okay, Black Cleaver. Obviously, that has to go unbroken. Like, not much has been changed from Season 13 to Season 14 with this item. I even think it has a better build path, so it's awesome. It just gives you what you need: health, damage, a lot of ability haste. The carve effect is perfect against champs that build armor, which is most of them nowadays. And then it's honestly amazing for your team, so you can stack Cleaver that way and then just deal even more damage just Very, very broken item on Gnar. And it's been meta forever, ever since I started playing the game. And it also gives movement speed, just everything you need on Gnar. Ionian boots. Now, I built these a ton recently, and honestly, it is not the best. I'm gonna put these in E tier. Like, it's like other boots are just like so much value. These are definitely one of the worst boots. These are probably better than Mobi's, but just the ability haste and then the cooldown on your spells just doesn't do it. Like, you need any other boot than this, in my opinion. Like, you need the resistances, you need the passives that it gives. This just isn't it for Gnar, sadly. Bloodthirster. So I actually really love Bloodthirster as an item. Again, this is my opinion. I'm gonna put this in A tier. Am I building this over a Bork? No. But for fun, I'm building this every time over Bork, just because it's so much more fun in my opinion. Now, this isn't as good as it used to be because it used to give a shield. Now it just gives flat AD above 70% HP. But with Bloodthirster, you're consistently healing, so I feel like you still get a lot of value with that passive. And I just love the playstyle with it. Like, you can always be aggressive. You can heal like an Irelia. It gives the damage that you need. And yeah, honestly, one of my favorite crit items on Gnar. Again, this is just my opinion on what I enjoy the most, what I think is the best. So yeah, you could have a different opinion. Like, this might be like down here for you, and I would completely respect that. But I just enjoy it so much. Now, Collector is interesting. A lot of these crit items like are going to be way lower than Bloodthirster, because Bloodthirster is one thing that has a ton of sustain. A lot of these other crit items do not. So a lot of crit items for me are either going to be C or D tier. I'm going to put this in C though, because if you're snowballing, this is technically a really good item. I feel like you can do a lot with the passive. And then you can also get tons of gold with it. If you're snowballing, like, it's just like a triumph value of gold. Definitely think it's better than Acne Mark. I think you'll be able to use this passive more than this passive. Like, our cooldown's already low enough, so we don't even have to worry about this with Acne Mark. So yeah, for now, I'm going to put this in C tier. Force of Nature. Now, Force of Nature is an item I don't build a lot, but it's very good on Gnar. And a lot of other people build it. I'm going to go and put this in S tier. It's not for me, but I'm going to respect the item. It gives everything that Gnar needs. It gives health, magic resist, movement speed, and you can stack to get even more stats. So yeah, it's honestly one of the better magic resist items. Just personally not for me. Like, this would be broken, I'm sure, in other people's lists, but for me it's just S, because I would prefer other magic resist items, and that's completely fine. Preference is completely fine in my opinion. D-Blade, I'm gonna put right up here in S tier. Actually, I'm just gonna put in broken, because what else are we building? Let's be honest. Out of all the starting items, of course, this is going to be the most broken. Recently, this got buffed, so it gives you 100 HP now. Gives you 10 damage. It gives you 3.5% lifesteal. Honestly, the perfect starting item. And I'm just going to go ahead and skip the coal here. I'm going to put this right next to D-Blade. As an item by itself, I would put it like an S. But with D-Blade, coal combo together, I'm going to put these two items together. I think it's broken because it is better value than a Vampiric Scepter, and it's the same amount of gold. You're getting pretty much the same amount of sustain with it. You're getting more AD, and with that, you're getting more health with D-Blade, plus you're getting free gold with coal. So it's honestly so amazing. A lot of people tell me that they do not like coal because you do not deal damage. People don't like it whenever I build it, even at the 10-minute mark. I still build it. I think coal can be built pretty much at any time before 15 minutes. Now, I know people are going to get mad at me for that, but I don't care. I think it's one of the better starting items on Gnar, sub-items on Gnar, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, that's just my take on it, my opinion. It just gives you what you need in lane, and honestly, the sustain is elite. Cosmic Drive. Now, this does give the stats that Gnar needs. Gives HP, movement speed, ability haste. See, it's tricky to rank this though, because technically you can get tons of value from it. I'm just gonna put this in D tier, like right the same as Banshee Veils. I think the extra defensive power that you get with Banshees is a little bit better than Cosmic Drive. I haven't really played much of Cosmic Drive, but whenever you do need a movement speed item, I do think it's good whenever you're going AP Gnar. Berserker Greaves. I'm gonna put this in A tier. I sometimes like to go on-hit Gnar with Heartsteel or any on-hit Gnar build, crit Gnar. I like to go to Berserker Greaves because whenever I go tank Gnar, I like to go Heartsteel, and then Berserker Greaves just gives you the attack speed that you would lose from not building the Trinity Force first. And then I like to go Berserker Greaves crit builds because obviously I like to go Bloodthirster first, so this gives me the attack speed that I would lose for my first item. And then in general, I think Berserker Greaves is essential in all or most AP builds because without attack speed, you're pretty much nothing with Gnar because your main damage is W and Mini Gnar. Of course, you have damage in R, but that's not as reliable since it's only in Mega. So yeah, there's a lot of things you can do with Berserker Greaves. I am going to put it in A tier because there are better boots. But I think A tier is a good spot because Gnar loves attack speeds and in certain builds you can just use it. D-Shield, I don't really like D-Shield that much anymore. I will still put it in a respectable S. In matchups, especially nowadays, there's a ton of range top, at least in patch 14.2. I've been noticing a ton of range top. And D-Shield paired with Second Wind is pretty broken. Not as broken as before in previous seasons, whenever it's super broken, but I still think it's pretty good, S tier worthy. Dark Seal, I'm going to put this in C tier. It's really cheap and it gives the value that you need. I like to go in AP builds. Technically very good for snowballing. I personally just do not like it. I could see other people arguing for B or A, but I personally just do not like it, so I'm just going to leave it in C. I die a ton with Gnar, so that could be a reason why I just don't get as much value from it. Chainsword, I'm going to put Chainsword in S tier. Chainsword is honestly an elite item whenever you do not need to build Thornmail or whenever you cannot build Thornmail and you just need that extra damage. I love building it against champs like Aatrox. It's my favorite to build against Aatrox. Anyone that you need healing reduction against. I only really like Thornmail with Tanknar, but we'll get to that later. But yeah, I definitely prefer this over Thornmail in certain builds and just reliable healing reduction whenever you need it. Deadman's Plate. So I'm going to put this, I don't build it as much, but I am going to put it in Broken. I think Deadman's Plate, honestly, very sleeper OP on Gnar right now. I feel like you can build this pretty much with any of the meta Gnar builds. The movement speed is very good, especially in both forms, honestly. Both forms, it just synergizes very well. It gives you the stats that you need, the damage as well. Sure, it isn't as strong as before, but I still think it's a pretty broken item. Now, there are other armor items I prefer, but I definitely have to put Deadman's Plate up here. Death's Dance. Now, this is an item that many others love, but I do not as much, but I will still put it in A tier. I personally do not like it that much. I feel like this item's mainly good when snowballing. I don't really like the passives that much. They're technically good on Gnar, but for me, it just isn't it. I would rather just build a Guardian's Angel whenever I need an AD armor item. Sure, it gives the stats that you need. That's why it's an A tier. But for me, I personally do not like it. And then again, other people probably have Death's Dance S or Broken. Just for me, it's an A. Eclipse. Now, Eclipse actually got pretty good changes. It gives you damage instead of lethality, just flat damage 70 AD. It still gives you ability haste, and whenever you attack, you get the shield, the movement speed. Not movement speed, I mean damage. They changed it, right? It's damage and a shield whenever you attack. Honestly, not the worst item in Gnar. I'm going to put this in B tier. Of course, there are other items that are just more reliable, but honestly, I think before, this was probably a very low tier, like down here. I think it rose a ton. I think B tier is respectable. I might even move this up to A tier later. Edge of Night, I really like Edge of Night. Another reliable item. I'm going to put this at the bottom of B. Only thing is, it just has lethality. If it didn't have lethality and it had another stat that Gnar loved, this would definitely could be an A or S tier item. But yeah, it has lethality, so it's going to stay here. The shield is very useful. The damage, I definitely think is better than Banshee's, just because it has the stats that you need on Gnar. So yeah, B tier I think is very respectable for Edge of Night. Essence Reaver, technically a Sheen item, so I will be putting this, I'll put this like at the bottom of C, only because it has Sheen. That's the only reason why it's here. I mean, sure, there's other reasons. It has ability haste and damage, but for the cost of the item, I could just build another item that gives me better stats. Example, Trinity Force, Iceborne Gauntlet, like, yeah, there's just better items than this, so that's why it's in C tier. Now, if I'm going Crit Gnar, it's pretty good, but yeah, just not for me, I guess. Now, Mercule, technically our only option for building into QSS, but as a full complete item, I don't really like it that much. I will put it in C tier though, only for the fact of the QSS passive. That's the only reason why it's here. QSS all by itself, I guess I should have had it separately, would be like an A tier, maybe top of B tier item. But yeah, This item as itself, for the gold that it costs, just not the best. Sure, you get magic resist, but and the AD, but the crit's just not it, honestly. So I just leave this in C as a full item. Bork. I think Bork is honestly one of the better lifesteal items on Gnar. I'm gonna put this in S tier. We don't build it much, but technically if you have the playstyle and you're snowballing, I think this is very excellent. Of course, this is really good against tanks, and they changed it where you do not have to auto 3 times, you just have to auto them once. So it's really broken in my opinion. I can tell like the difference like right away. Just autoing them once, it's easier. You slow them down, it's easier to catch up to them. And then yeah, like I said with Bloodthirster, it's probably one of the better lifesteal items. Like the tempo that you can get with it is very, very good. So yeah, I think S is a very great place for Bork. Ghostblade. Now, this item does have the damage, but then again, it is a lethality item, so if you do build this, you are going to be very squishy. The movement speed is nice, but based on the movement speed passive, I'll just put it in D tier. Maybe it's a little bit better than Axiom. I'll put it at the top of D tier since, you know, AD technically gives better values than AP. Ghostblade, not my favorite. Only reason why it's not lower is because it has AD and movement speeds. The cost of the item is nice, but I personally will not be building it. And yeah, it's good for roaming, but again, we're just prone to getting one-shots so much. I'm just going to put Dawncore in F tier because lots of mana stuff. We're not going to be able to use it, so I'll just go ahead and put it in F tier. I think this is called Winter's Approach. It's not the best, but technically since it has HP, I will put it in E tier. But again, the mana problem, we don't have mana, we can't use it. Frozen Heart, I get a lot of comments about this item. I sadly do not personally like it, but it does give armor, and in situations it technically could be good with the attack speed lowering whenever people attack you. I'm just going to put this in B tier. The cost is nice, only 2400 gold. It gives you a ton of armor. But yeah, I think Randuin's is just on a different level with this item. But I'll put it in a respectable B. Guardian's Angel broken, 100% broken. This is like, I think one of the more essential items for Gnar, in my opinion, especially against AD teams. I like to build this 3rd, 4th, 5th a lot of games. I think the build path is even better than last season, and the stats are perfect for Gnar. Armor, damage, and then the passive is really broken, the revive passive. So I just think Guardian Angel will always be a broken item as long as it stays like it is. I think it's very good combined with Sterak's as well. Just the survivability is very, very good. Iceborne Gauntlet. I think this is a good, reliable A tier item. I'll put it at the top of A. It isn't as good as last season, since it isn't a mythic anymore, but it still gives the slow, it still has a Sheen proc, and it still has armor and health, so I think it's very, very reliable. I do think there's better armor items though, but when you're not opting for a Trinity Force, I think this is a really good item, especially with Tank Gnar. So I'll put it in a respectable A tier. Hextech. Now I think Hextech is one of the better AP items. I'm going to put this in B tier. I think it has a ton of potential because it has a dash, and we knew how broken Gnar was with the Stridebreaker dash, so I think this is one of the reasons. And it also has stats that Gnar can actually use. Like, it doesn't have mana regen. It has just base AP, HP, so yeah. That's why I will put it in B tier. Now, Knight's Vow is an item I actually used to build a lot back in the day with the old Frostfire, Sunfire items. Nowadays, I don't think it's as good. Maybe with Heartstone Gnar, I could see you fitting a build into it. I'm just going to put this in C tier since it does technically have the stats that you need. Ability haste, health, and armor. Only 2200 gold, but again, we're not going to be able to really use this unless we build tank. And I just believe there's better tank items, so I'll just put it in C tier. Hubris. So I tried to build Hubris like a couple times, and honestly not my favorite. Like, you're really squishy with this item, and you have to rely on getting kills, and I just feel like with lethality Gnar builds, you're going to get one shot, so I feel like you don't get much value from it. I was going to put this in D tier, not my favorite. So Liandry's is back, no more mana. It does burning damage. I'll put this at the top of C tier. I definitely think there are technically situations where we could build it, but again, there's just better items to build, so I just put it in C tier. But one of the better AP items for sure. Now, if it had its mana and it costed more, definitely a D tier item, but I will just put this, actually I'm going to put this at the bottom of C because honestly the burn passive doesn't do much in Gnar, but I still think with the HP, at least it has HP and stats that Gnar can use, so I'll put it in C tier. Echoes, again, support item, I was going to put this in F. And then Mana Mune, whatever this is called, again mana, but it at least gives AD, so I'll just put it in E tier next to the other mana item, Crit Bloom. So I built this recently. Honestly, not my favorite. It technically gives stats that Gnar needs. It does have mana, so... Excuse me, it does not have mana, but I feel like the passive, like, you just won't get much value from. And again, it's very hard to pull off AP Gnar, so I'll put this in D tier though, because it technically does give the stats that Gnar need. Hourglass. Now, I think this is one of the better AP Gnar items. I will be putting this into B tier. I think it's a little bit better than Hextech because it's more reliable. The only problem is the cost. Now, if it was the cost of previous seasons under 3K, 100% would be in A tier, but this thing costs 3,200 now, and honestly, it's cool. We get the armor, AP, and then obviously the stopwatch effect is very, very broken, but it costs a ton of gold now and not as reliable as before. So I think B tier is pretty decent for it. Hexplate, I personally hate this item. It technically gives the stats that Gnar needs. I'll put this in B tier, like right here in the middle of B tier. It's cool because whenever you ult, you get attack speed and movement speed, and you can technically ult twice in one Mega Gnar if you build ability haste, but I've tried 10 games of it this season, and it's honestly not consistent enough for me to put it in an A or S tier. Sure, it gives the stats that Gnar needs, but personally, I do not like it. I've had tons of trouble trying to have success with the item, and it's just not consistent enough, sadly. For me, at least. Hullbreaker. I still think Hullbreaker is pretty broken. I don't see enough people building it, but I think the change with you doing more damage with the 5th attack, honestly, is still really good. Like, we have a Sheen proc, we have Demolish if we want to take it. We're still going to deal damage to towers. What I think is really good is the Boarding Party passive whenever you're near minions. I think that's still very broken. And then the tempo you can get with split pushing is obviously amazing. You have a ton of outplay potential with it. Gives the stats that Gnar needs. Yeah, still think it's pretty broken in my opinion. Very sleeper OP item. Heartsteel, you guys know I love this item. I'm definitely putting this in broken. This recently got buffed. It now gives 900 HP and it only costs 3k gold to build now. Of course, very good late game item. Very good item whenever enemy messes up draft, especially against full AP or full AD teams. And now with the item changes, I think it's even better because there's a ton of good items that both have armor and magic resist that goes very well with Heartsteel. For example, Jackshow is very well. Terminus. There's just a few examples. I think tank items are a lot better in this season. I just think that makes Heartsteel that much better. And I think there's many variations you can do with this build. You technically build Bruiser with this. You can build on hit. You can go full tank. There's many variations you can go. But yeah, I think it's very broken. I don't care what anyone says. It's just my opinion. It's what I enjoy the most. So yeah, I'm putting it in broken. Moonstone, again, just support item we can't really use. Lichbane, I will put Lichbane in D tier only because of the Sheen proc. And then it has some stats that Gnar likes, like movement speed, but yeah, definitely D tier. I'll put Essence Razor a little bit higher because it has AD. And then yeah, this has AP, so it's definitely not as useful. Now, I'll always say this as long as I do a tier list that I miss Old Mortal Reminder when it only costs, what, like 2,500 gold. You had attack speed, movement speed, damage, healing reduction, crits. It was so perfect for some Snowball Gnar builds or on-hit Gnar builds, but sadly, they changed it to fit more ADCs. So it'll just never be the same, and it costs 3k gold now, so you technically get healing reduction. I personally do not really like it. It's good, it's decent in crit Gnar builds, but I'm just going to put it in D tier. Technically good for healing reduction, but only in crit builds. Would build Kimpunk over that any day, so yeah. I miss Old Mortal Reminder. Please bring it back. Alright, Kanik. Kanik is very good in more item on Gnar. I really love it. I'm going to put it in S tier. It has all the stats that Gnar needs. Magic resist, health, and then the shield is honestly amazing. I love it with Heartsteel Gnar because it scales with 20% of your HP, so I think it's OP with that. It's even good with Trinity Force Gnar. Yeah, Kanik very good against AP champs. Very reliable. Navori Quick Blades. So Navori is very interesting because it can reduce your base cooldowns. Not your ultimate, but your base cooldowns. I think it's very good paired with Bloodthirster. But I just feel like, you know, of course, one-shot prone. It does have stats that Gnar likes, so I will put it in C tier. Why not? There's definitely, like, this item is definitely better than some in my opinion, so I'll put it in C tier. Kraken Slayer, honestly not the worst item. I'm gonna put this at the top of C tier. One of the better on-hit crit items. Again, you're one-shot prone, but I think it's definitely the best with Heartsteel build with the on-hit Heartsteel build. But the problem is, it's our last item that we build with that build, and then honestly, there's other items that are just better, in my opinion, nowadays. In Season 14, I used to love to build this with Runons, Titanic, Rage Blades, with Heartsteel, but yeah, now there's better items in the game. This has sadly gone down to C tier. I don't know where it was last time, but C tier definitely feels lower. Infinity Edge, I'm gonna put this in C tier. I definitely think it's useful, especially with the Bloodthirster build. Definitely one of the better crit items. Again, one-shot prone, I'm gonna say that with every crit item, but if you're trying to hyper carry, this is technically good. Of course, there's better items to hyper carry with, but does give base stats that you need, gives a ton of damage, so we'll put it in C tier. I think this is Imperial, we'll just put this in F tier. Okay, Locket. So I think Locket is actually decent. Is it decent enough to be with these items? Probably not. However, I will put it with these items, just the fact that it only costs 2200 gold. It gives you health, magic resist, armor, ability haste, and then the shield and team fights is really good. I would like to test this with Heartsteel, because previously we couldn't, obviously because of Mythics, but now I can build this with Heartsteel, so this technically could be a good item. Like I said, this item, like, decent against teams, both magic resist and armor whenever you need it, because mixed teams, you know, it's going to be good against them, like Jack Show. So I'm going to put this in B tier, definitely need to do more testing with it. Malinance. Now, this is one of my more recent videos. I personally do not like it. Sure, the ult damage with the burn is cool, but that's pretty much the only use. I'm just gonna put this in D tier, to be honest. Not my personal favorite. Definitely a better item unlike Karthus or Teemo, I would guess. Lord Doms, I'll just put this at the near the bottom of C tier. Again, one-shot prone, but very good for the hyper carry crit build, so I'll put this in C tier. And I prefer this over Mortal Reminder because this gives more value. It's like the Black Cleaver of crit, I guess, if you want a comparison, except that it doesn't stack, you just do base. But yeah, that's what I'll just put it in C tier. And then it honestly doesn't give bad value because whenever you're building full crit Gnar, you're lower HP, and then you'll just do a ton of damage to everyone around you since you have one of the lowest HP stats in the game. So honestly, not bad. I'll put this up here. I don't know. Rapid Fire Cannon used to not be this expensive. It does cost 3k gold now. It does give the stats that you need, but I personally just don't think we'll get much use from it. Again, one-shot prone, do not really like it. I'll just put it at the top of D tier. I do not really feel like we get to use Horizon Focus that well. Like our Q, maybe, but it doesn't deal AP damage, so there's not really any use. So I'm honestly gonna put this in E tier. I don't really like it. Sure, it gives base stats, but not my favorites, I'll be honest with you. Serpent's Fang technically can give value. I rarely build it nowadays. I'll put it in C tier because it technically can give good value, but the problem is, of course, one-shot prone, lethality, good against shielding champions, but we're never really gonna get to build it and get much value from it as other champs. Maul. I think Maul is honestly a very decent item on Gnar. I will put this in A tier, but I do feel like there's better MR items. I think Sterax is better than this item still after all these years. So, sure, the lifesteal passive, the shield, just not my favorite. If you're going against full AP teams, sure, I guess you could build this, but personally not my favorite. Redemption, we'll just put this in F. Ludens, I do not really like. Honestly, E tier, do not really like it. I thought we would have a ton of one-shot potential, but it honestly just isn't there. I tried it a couple times, just didn't like it. It seemed like a good item, it just isn't. There's just better AP items you'll get more value from. Medjai, so I am going to put this in a tier. I'll just put this in E tier because, again, AP Gnar, you're one-shot prone, so you're just going to get one-shot and then you're just not going to get any value. I will put it in E tier because there is technically a chance that this will be more useful than all of these items, but still going to be E tier for me. I think Darkseal is way more value for the price. It's not as risky. This is 1500 gold, I believe, or something like that. So only 350 gold. I'll much rather take the risk with Darkseal than upgrading it to this, so yeah. Alright, Hollow Radiance. I actually really like this item. I think it's very excellent with Tank Gnar. It's basically the MR Sunfire item, but it does a ton of damage. I'm gonna put this in A tier. I really like it. Very good with Heartsteel Gnar build. I don't really like it with 24 Gnar build because I don't think it gives much value, but definitely with Heartsteel, I really like it. Just gives the stats that you need, and of course the damage, the wave clear is really, really good. So I'll put it in A tier. Mikkel's, I'll put this in E tier since just because of the QSS effect that you can put on your teammates, but that is solely it, and I guess the magic resist. Merc Treads, I'm going to put this in S tier. Very good boots option against Tenacity and of course AP champs. And yeah, that's all I have to say, honestly, just very reliable. Roundness, I think Roundness is a pretty good snowball item. I am just going to put this in B tier though. Honestly, the wave clear is very great. Tiamat effect, it's very, very great. Honestly, I'll put this in A tier now that I'm thinking about it. Like, I have to remember, you don't have to stack this anymore. It's just base damage now. It's more reliable. I'll put it in A tier. Good snowball item. Gives you the sustain you need. Good wave clear. Yeah, I'll just put it in A tier. Morello, so I think this honestly is better because it doesn't have mana, I believe, and it only costs, what, 2200 gold, and it gives you the base stats that you need with healing reduction. You may think I'm crazy, but I would have put this in C tier. Honestly, not the worst if you're going AP Gnar whenever you need healing reduction. If you want to do the full AP Gnar build, I'll just put it in C tier. Why not? We can't really use Opportunity that well, of course, one-shot prone, but the movement speed after killing champs or outside of combat, or I mean the lethality outside of combat, I mean, yeah, sure, yeah, you technically have the chance to one-shot, but honestly, not consistent enough. Sure, it gives the stats that Gnar needs, but not my favorite. I'll just put this in D tier, honestly. Phantom Dancer, I will put Phantom Dancer in, I'll put it at the top of B tier. It like doesn't give as much stats as before, but I still like it. I still like the Spectral Waltz passive, if that's what it's still called, where you stack attack speed, you get the movement speed. Has all the stats that Gnar would like in an on-hit item except for sustain. If this item had sustain, definitely going to be up here, but I'll just leave it in B tier. I really like it in on-hit builds. I don't really build it with any of the main builds like 24 or Heartsteel. None of those builds, so I'll leave it in B tier. Randuin's very broken in my opinion. I definitely put this in broken. I think it's one of the better tank Gnar items. It's very cheap, has one of the better build paths in the game for early game. The slow is amazing, the crit effect, take less damage from crits, it gives the stats that Gnar needs. Infinitely better than Frozen Heart. I just think it's honestly one of the better armor items on Gnar. You're just going to get the most value for the least amount of gold. That's why it's broken. As simple as that. Rylai's, the slow is nice. Gives the stats that you need. It's pretty cheap. I'll put it in C tier. Why not? Am I ever going to build it? Probably not, but definitely better than some other AP item. Now looking at this, I'm going to put Banshee's Veil up here as well, because it technically gives the stats that you need. It has the shield. Also put Cosmic Drive up here. I am changing my mind on a lot of this. I don't know. Like, I feel like you could switch this anyway with any of these items, C tier. I could see you like having the lethality items above AP items, which I probably should, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. We're never going to build these items anyways. Okay, Rageblade. I really like Rageblade. I'll put it in A tier. So Rageblade's no longer a mythic item. It has pretty much the old stats that it used to have. I really love it with the on-hit Heartsteel build. I think it's very broken if you can get those items together with Titanic and Runons. Best on-hit effect in the game for Gnar 100% in my opinion. I'm going to put it in A tier. Very fun in my opinion. Riftmaker, I actually haven't tested Riftmaker yet. I do want to do a video on it, but it's pretty much basically the same as last season. It gives the stats that you need. Omnivamp is nice. I'll put this toward like the upper of AP items and C tier. I think that is fair. Honestly, I'll put it in B tier. Why not? I'll put it in B tier. I think it's more useful than all of these, so I'll put it in B tier. Seraldo's Grudge is honestly one of my favorite lethality items. I'm going to put this near the top of C tier. I love the slow that you get with it. And then yeah, it just gives the AD that you need to do. Once upon a time, I used to build Black Cleaver, Divine, and Seraldo's Grudge all together. And it just felt so much fun. You can one-shot everything. But yeah, I'll just put it in C tier. One of the better lethality items in my opinion because of the slow. Runon's Hurricane. I love Runon's. Now this is my list, so I'm going to put this in broken. I love the item. Sure, we don't build it as much anymore, but I still love it. I love the tempo that you can get with it. You can build this in many situations with any build, I think. Go with the on-hit tank Gnar build, go with any on-hit build. The tempo that you get with the item, the wave clear, and it can save the game a ton. I've said this many times, but I'm going to say it again. In games where your team does not have wave clear and you just have a ton of minions sieging your base, honestly, perfect buy because you at least have a chance to extend the game. I don't know, I just love Runons. One of my favorite items and the cost is still so low. You may think I'm trolling, but I genuinely love it. But am I going to build this in my ranked games when I try hard? Probably not, but just because of the fact of how much fun I have with it, I'm gonna put it up here. Shadow Flame, honestly not the best in my opinion. I was putting in D tier. We don't have the true damage to critically strike the enemies at low HP. We do have ability power technically in W and R and Mega, but it's just not as consistent. I'll just leave it in D tier. Plated Steel Caps, probably the best boots on Gnar, let's be honest. Let's put this in Broken. Ever since they added the thing where abilities that count as auto attacks also count towards the 12% passive, then I just think it's broken. Probably the standard boots on Gnar, let's be honest. Spirit Visage, I really love Spirit Visage. One of my favorite MR items. I'm gonna put this in Broken tier. A lot of people don't like it, like they prefer Force of Nature, but I prefer this because in a lot of builds, we build Sterak's Gauge, and that increases Sterak's Gauge's shield. So that's one of the reasons why it's up here. Also gives all the base stats that you need for an MR item. And then I think it's extra good, especially in Enchanter metas, because you just get more value from that. And then a lot of the time, you're going to get a Mountain Soul and Ocean Soul. I feel like there's many effects in the game where you're just going to get tons of value from it. And I think it's more consistent. And yeah, I'll put it in Broken tier. And even without all of that, you get the huge shield with Sterak, so you're immune to burst. I feel like that's one of the more consistent ways to not get one-shot in 24 Gnar build, is to build this with Sterak's Gauge. And yeah, very consistent. I really love it. Spear of Chosen. Honestly, this item is a lot better. Very good Mega Gnar item. I'm going to put this at the bottom of A tier. If you can hit all your abilities, this is the item for you. It could technically be a broken item if you can do that, but of course, you're not going to be able to hit every single ability. But yeah, it gives the stats that you need, does the stacking damage now, the ability haste on your non-ultimate cooldowns, very good. I'll leave it in A tier. I definitely do like it a lot more than last season. Sterak's Gauge, you just heard what I said about Spirit Visage. Definitely one of the more broken items in my opinion. I love to build this pretty much every game. Second, third, fourth, just whenever I can buy it. The HP, AD, and the shield, tenacity is all elite. And like I said, very well with Spirit Visage. And then any team that has burst, which is a lot nowadays, let's be honest, you're getting one shot by everything. Sterak's Gauge is just going to help you survive that. Just very, very good. Strikebreaker, so this recently did get buffed. It is nice. Again, I'll say this every time, won't be the same without the dash. Very reliable, like in some matchups though, so I will put this towards the top of A tier because all the stats that you need, the slow is pretty nice. Sadly, it isn't as good without like the Iron Spike Whip because it doesn't really do damage anymore, right? It just slows. If it had the damage without, I'll probably would put this in S tier. Especially since I can build this with Trinity Force now. But I'll just put it in A tier. Very good situationally in some games. So yeah, I'll just put it in A tier. Definitely not an item I'm going to build first, but still very reliable. Storm Razor. Now, this item honestly isn't bad. It gives the stats that you need, and then the movement speed on the on-hit effect, dealing damage. Not too horrible. I'll just put this in C tier around the other crit items, I guess. Because it technically does have things that Gnar likes. Again, one-shot prone. Swifties. I think I'm going to put this in, honestly, the top of S tier. I'm not going to put broken because, of course, we're lacking resistances. But I am going to say it's just that one level below broken. Because, honestly, very sleeper OP in a ton of matchups against champs that have slows or a ton of movement speeds. Biggest examples I like is Nasus and Trundle. But recently, I think it's very good against Udyr. Any chance that you need the Kite that have tons of movement speed and like to slow you, I even think Darius is a good option. But yeah, Swifty is very good. And then the slowing, the less effective slowing effect that you get with it, very, very good. Or slow resist, whatever it's called. Very, very good. I think it's better than Merc Treads, but very, very underrated boots. Mobies, I will be putting these in F tier. Not my favorites. Profane Hydra. I'm going to put this in C tier. The wave clear is nice, but again, one-shot prone and not the best Tiamat item. There's better Tiamat items. There's Titanic and there's Ravenous. Good wave clear, but that's about it for me. And then the combo, you could have potential to one-shot, but again, not for me. Static Shiv gives good wave clear, but there's just better wave clear items in the game. It is a crit item. I'm just going to put this in D tier. Maybe old Static Shiv when it first got released, when it was insanely broken, like last year, sure. Maybe this could be C or B tier, but D tier after all the changes, not my favorite. Gnash's Tooth, I do think this is one of the better AP Gnar items. I will be putting this above the rest. I'll just put it above Hourglass. I think that's respectable. I don't want to put like the AP items in like the items of A, S tier because it's kind of like a disrespect to those items. I think B tier is like the ceiling for AP items. But yeah, I think it's one of the better AP items on Gnar. It gives all the stats you need, attack speed, like Mini Gnar loves attack speed. This is like one of the only AP items with attack speed, hence why it's above the rest. And then the magic damage you get with scaling AP, very, very good. Terminus, I really like Terminus. I think it's very good snowball item with the Heartsteel build. I'll just put this in A tier somewhere. It gives damage, attack speed, on hit magic damage. And then I like the effect where every other attack you'll get the armor magic penetration or armor magic resist stacking. I really like that. It makes it where you have to be aggressive, and you have to be aggressive with Heartsteel. So I think it's just the perfect combination, honestly. Very, very fun. I personally do not like Rod of Ages because once you build it, you have to wait to get all the stats. And honestly, mana is not the best. Sure, it gives HP and AP, but not my favorite. I'm just going to put this in E tier. Storm Surge does have one-shot potential. I tried this, but honestly, maybe paired with a Malignance, it could be very good, but it's just not for me. I'll put it right where Malignance is, in the D tier. Not my favorite. There's better AP items. Okay, Sunfire. I think I was going to put this right next to Hollow Radiance. I think they're both good in their own respective ways. Whenever you need armor and you're going tank Gnar, Sunfire's there. If you need magic resist and you need Hollow Radiance, it's there. I think they're basically on the same level, so I'll just put it in A tier. Does the damage that you need, the wave clear. Very awesome item. Jackshow. I actually really like Jackshow. I'm going to put this in Broken. It gives just the base stats that you need, a ton of armor, magic resist, health, and then any item that you can stack, of course you can get value from, and that's what you can do with this item in combat, so very reliable. I didn't think that this was going to be one of the better tank Gnar items, but it is. It just gives you what you need. Very good. Shield Bow. Now, I do think this is one of the better crit items. I'm going to put this in B tier. I really like it because it gives the shield that you would need like Sterax. It gives you the sustain that you would need like Bloodthirster. And then it gives the damage and crit. The problem is the value just isn't as much as the other two items that I just listed. And then it also just doesn't have the attack speed like it used to. Sure, whenever the shield pops, you get it. But I think whenever I used to have attack speed, it was more reliable. Maybe I had the base attack speed. It would be an A tier, but B tier because of that. Death Cap. I like the base stats that Death Cap gives. It is too expensive though. I'll just put it in C tier. It's reliable whenever going full AP Gnar builds. But if you're going this, you're definitely one-shot prone, so I'll just leave it in C tier. Titanic Hydra. I think Titanic Hydra is very good. I don't like it as much as the old Titanic Hydra because you know I love the build with Heartsteel, and then it just scaled with the max HP you have. You got more AD. It's still a really good on hit item, so I'm going to put it in S tier. Still very good. I like the passive whenever you can just use it to get an extra auto off. Of course, the wave clear is amazing. It gives the stats that you need. So yeah, I will put it in S tier. Very good item on Gnar. Trailblazer. I tried this. Honestly, not the best. I thought it would be better. I'll put it in like a respectable B tier though, because it does give the stats that Gnar needs, and it's pretty cheap. Very good team fighting item, but personally just not for me. I will put it in B tier. Thornmail. Now, I know what I said earlier about how I prefer Chainsword, but I think Thornmail is just broken, right? Thornmail is one of the better armor items. It actually gives like one of the most armor stats in the game. It gives 70 armor only for 2,700 gold, and of course health, and then healing reduction. So yeah, just very reliable. Sometimes I prefer Kimpunk in certain matchups, but Thornmail is just always going to be reliable, isn't it? Sundered Sky. I think this is really good. I'm going to put an S tier, like around the same range as Bork and Titanic. This is like a Gore Drinker and a Divine in one. It's hard to describe because the lower HP, the more healing it can do. It can also crit, which is crazy. It gives the damage that you need, the HP that you need. So yeah, basically just a different version of Gore Drinker and Divine together. So we'll put it in S tier because very good on Gnar. Okay, Trinity Force. I have not been liking this item lately, personally, but let's be honest, it is the best item on Gnar still. Even after the mythic items removed, it's still the best item. It gives all the stats that you need. HP, damage, ability haste, movement speeds, attack speeds, Sheen proc. What more could you ask for? The tempo that you get with this item is crazy. Of course, it doesn't have like the stacking damage passive anymore, but doesn't really matter. Still the most broken item on Gnar in my opinion. Of course, I enjoy items like Heartsteel, Runons, Bloodthirst for more. But if you're going to try hard, if you're trying to win, then you're going to go Trinity Force. So yeah, like I said, no item will replace Trinity Force at the top until something drastic happens to Trinity Force, or it just like gets removed from the game, or another item gets insanely buffed. So Trinity Force will always have the number one spot for Gnar. Umbriel Glaive, this is more of a support item. We can't really utilize it that well. Does give the damage, ability haste. I'll just put it in C tier, I guess, for the price. It is pretty cheap and it is good for clearing wards, I guess. I don't know. This could easily be in D tier though. I'll put it in C tier though. Why not? Okay, Unending Despair. Very good with Heartsteel. I'm going to put this in B tier. I think there's better armor items, but if the enemy locks in full AD and you make it to your third, fourth, fifth item, very good. You get very good healing with it. Very reliable. I'll put it in B tier though, because I do prefer other armor items, but definitely if you get a really high HP game, very, very good item with Heartsteel. Okay, Staff, I'm just going to put this in F tier. The mana item I'll put here in E tier since it has damage. Void I will put in C tier because it does technically give the stats that you would need, but again, I'm not going to be building it that much. I prefer Death Cap over it actually, so I'll put it in D tier actually. Now, if Gnar had Stealth and this item had a different stat other than Lethality, like HP, I think this could honestly be an A tier item. But the fact that it's one-shot prone and yeah, it just doesn't give all the stats on Gnar needs. Like sure, he loves the damage, but and the movement speed that you get with the on-hit effects. Not the movement speed, my bad. The energized attack that slows them. I get movement speed slowing down mixed up sometimes, but yeah. I'll just put this in C tier. It's technically better than some items. I'll just leave it here. Warmogs, I don't build as much. I still think it's good with Tank Gnar. I will put this in a respectable B tier. I think this is fine. I think there's just more valuable items nowadays. Like, you're not going to get much value from Warmogs nowadays. Still good with Heartsteel, but there's just other items I would rather build, let's be honest. Okay, here's the other item. I'll also put this right next to it. I don't know which one's better, but again, doesn't matter. We're not going to build it because of the mana. Wits End, I think this is one of the best magic resist items on Gnar, definitely. Very broken. It did get a change where it doesn't have base AD, but it does have tenacity now. It does cost less. It's only 2,800 gold, and it still has the on-hit magic damage with the attack speed that you needed. So honestly, it doesn't matter that much. So I'm still going to put it in broken, one of the better AP Gnar items and on-hit items, to be honest. Very reliable. And then lastly, we have Zeki's. Only 2,200 gold, but I mean, the ult is nice, where you can slow down people, but honestly, we're not going to be able to get much value from it. I'll put it in C tier. Not for me, but I could see the value we could get from it with the cost of it. And yeah, that is it. We have done all the items that I wanted to rank. Here is my list. I don't think I'm going to change anything around. I'm just going to go with what this says right here. It's pretty good enough for me. I don't really mind it too much. Sure, there's little things I could probably change, but for the most part, I like this list a ton. And then yeah, that is the tier list for Season 14. I played with most of these items. I made tons of videos on all the new items, so yeah. Now, I want to compare my list to Season 13, so let's go do that right now. Alright, so I went back to my video. I made this in patch 13.10. The items look completely different, but for the most part, I can see broken items being very similar. Same with S tier, honestly. The only difference really is that I have Spirit Visage and Deadman's a level above. I still have the boots in the same spot. I still have Deep Blade Coal and Broken. I think I have Runons and Broken. I could easily put down the S. I think I just put Runons together with Titanic and Rageblade just because of the on-hit effect. I think that's fine too. I would be happy with that. I think I put Iceborne in A tier. Of course, Divine is in the game, but most of these items that are in A tier are either a tier above or below in similar fashion. So I think I did a pretty good job there. Like, it's still pretty similar. Yeah, it's very similar, honestly. I'll be honest with you. I think I had Static Shiv up really high because it was very broken back then. So it technically gave value. But yeah, for the most part, it's pretty much the same. Of course, some of these items are already moved, like Gale Force. We won't see this. But yeah, I could see us getting, yeah, pretty much same perspective last time. Yeah, it's really similar. Honestly, not much has changed, but a lot has changed. Like, there's a ton of new items, but from last season, not a lot of things changed. Like, the same items from last season are very similar to this season, and I guess that's just Riot doing a good job of keeping the items pretty balanced or pretty much the same, at least for Gnar. So props to Riot, I guess, for making the items that we used before still the same use as the next season. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Alright, here is the final look at the list. Let me know down below what you would change. And yeah, this was my ultimate Season 14 Gnar item tier list. I might do an update on this if they do anything in mid-season. I'm not 100% sure, but if they do not do anything major the rest of Season 14, I guess the next time we do this video will be in Season 15 if there's any other major item changes. But yeah, I'm happy with this list. Sure, maybe there's a few things I would change if I like really studied it, but this is just my first, time putting it on there after a couple weeks after the season started. So yeah. Honestly, not many changes from the last tier list, but also a lot of changes because there's a ton of new items added. Alright guys, I'm sure this video is long enough. I've been recording for over an hour. I'm not sure how long the actual video is, but yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I love you guys forever and always. Bye bye.